there that could be an issue. Prof. Gerdes is in the chat. My goodness, Mitch, I probably need to invite Prof. Gerdes then. I was going to hang around for a bit. This is where he gets to defend himself, where I've just spoken on his behalf. I've just sent him that on Messenger. So, Prof. Gerdes, if you're watching, welcome. I've already been talking for 2 hours, though. I don't know how much longer human beings are willing to listen to me blather on. But I think this should put to bed all of my thoughts, right, on an upcoming, on the Harris nomination. And thanks so much, Mitch. By the way, you're an absolute legend. No, I just put JR in the chat. I thought he was in the chat. No, Prof. Gerdes has looked at my message, so hopefully he'll be on in a bit. Yeah, hopefully I haven't annoyed him by speaking on his behalf, but if we can get him on to talk about that. That'd be interesting. Now, with regard to what other people have to say, keep it civil, guys. Yeah. Here's the man, the legend. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just got to mute you on the other side.
Or just mute.
Yeah, I had
in general.
I had to mute you on the because I was watching, and I only caught the end of what you were doing, so I don't know what you said on my behalf. So you can make crap up at this point, and I would be none the wiser.
I was saying that you are the best-looking Republican I've ever spoken to, and there is no other human being I'd rather be.
Of the three of us, I appreciate that. I'm assuming the third. So
so what I said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I said that assuming that you're still in a position where Trump is not the guy for you, I would say that Prof. Gerdes seems to be the sort of guy who would spoil his ballot or vote third party or not, but couldn't bring himself to vote for the Democrats. And I was trying to express that from my point of view, and obviously it's easier for me to say because I don't have that heritage of voting Republican, but from my point of view, it should be a mathematical decision, which is if I don't want this guy to win, then the best chance for this guy not to win is to vote for this guy because it's only a binary choice, effectively. So that's what I was saying.
But that's simplifying the system. Like 300... My state will go for Trump by 300,000, regardless of what I do. It does. I mean, we're talking about within the system that we are.
Yeah.
And so if you're talking theoretically, perhaps you're right. But if we're talking about how the actual dynamics actually work, it doesn't matter. It matters in 6 states. If you're in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, like if you're in those states, it really comes down to that kind of calculation.
Yeah. So if you were living in Pennsylvania, for example, things would be different, right? But
yeah,
you're not.
Now you have a really hard choice that you have to make if you have my position.
Yeah. And I didn't know that because you told me that last time. I forgot it.
Yeah. So let me speak to. I'm not as well equipped to speak to what we're talking about right now as I was when we were talking about Trump before, because I can tell you how Republicans think about Trump. I can tell you how Republicans think about Democrats, but that's not the same as how Democrats think about Democrats. You were just talking about how you think that Kamala is going to eviscerate Trump. I can tell you no Republican is thinking that that's going to happen.
I would qualify that by saying she could on the right day, but she could also bomb against Trump, like in a one-on-one debate. That's why I'm saying it's 50-50. It depends whether she's on a good day. But I understand that
you might be right, but I'm telling you that Republicans from their worldview see it differently than Democrats from their worldview, and it's just going to be like Republicans are not. So I'm watching Twitter really carefully, right? And, Republicans, they can't believe that it's going to be Harris. They're beside themselves. Well, not exactly. They did think that they could beat Biden. Biden thought that they could beat Biden, and that's why he ultimately stepped aside finally, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it wasn't... So, Ari Fleischer, I was just watching this, and Ari Fleischer was talking about this, and he said something really interesting to my mind. Either Biden's too old, or he didn't think he could win. Is that a fair assessment, Jonathan?
I think what tipped it were the polls. I think really.
Yeah, I think it's that as well. Now, if he's too old, and there's a chorus of people calling for Biden to step aside because, we know that there's a problem here. If he's too old, then he's too old probably right now, and Republicans are starting to call for him to resign right now. That's freaking dangerous because you make Harris increase in stature, right? So if they do that,
she automatically takes over.
That backfires. Now you have a president versus a president.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just trying to explain things. I'm not rooting here because I'm really still without anyone to root for. Like Harris, so I have a hard time coming over to Biden because of the policies, but Harris owns all the same policies as Biden. It's part of the same administration. If they wanted to do a Keir Starmer as opposed to what's the guy's name that was destroyed the party before?
Rishi Sunak.
No.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Corbyn. If she wanted to do a Starmer versus a Corbyn, then she would pull the middle pretty significantly. Even someone like me could come along and be like, okay, but they're not going to do that. I think they're just going to coronate, and I'm choosing that word intentionally. They're going to coronate her as quickly as they can rather than have opposition. But the opposition actually strengthens the candidate and finds the best candidate in the shakeout. But my gut is that that's not going to happen. Okay, back to Ari Fleischer.
Well, just to say on that point, we discussed this right at the beginning of, I say discuss it, I was talking about this right at the beginning of the video, which is, I think it's likely it'll be a coronation rather than an open convention. But either way, she'll probably win the open convention because but the thing is, she's been endorsed by all the people that would otherwise run against her. She's actually been endorsed by literally every other person that would have been her opposition. So it's an interesting situation as what you would do there.
More importantly, you look for the money. The reason that she has the extra advantage is the money because she has
95.9
and raised 50 million almost yesterday since, right?
60 million plus.
Oh, is it now 60 million?
Yeah.
Okay,
well, 60 million at 4:00 last night, my time, and that was 12 hours ago. So goodness knows what it is now.
The report that I saw from the morning was 50, whatever it is. It's a lot.
A
right?
lot. Yeah.
Okay, so either he's too old and he needs to step down, Biden needs to step down now, or he got pushed out, and he's not really a hero for doing the right thing when he got pushed out by power politics, but he'll be written in the history books that way.
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably a bit of both. He's been pushed and then realised like he could have stayed on, but like it was. But as I say, the polls plus being pushed and realising that he is too old. I mean, I was thinking from a personal point of view, just from a human point of view. I was watching. I said earlier, I was watching Walk last night, and like his walking is so compromised just in terms of like it's like me, like I struggle to put one foot in front of the other very well, and like watching him walk, and I was thinking there must be some element of him like from a human point of view that will sit down and go, do you know what, thank goodness I'm not going to be president for 4 more years. Just like honestly, I can't think that
I don't think he was thinking that. I think he really wants it, but unfortunately got pushed out by his own party. Like my party couldn't have pushed him out. I mean, not that way. Right? So that's where he is. Now, it's interesting. So on the left, it seems to be a breath of fresh air, a new wind in your sail. I don't think the right is thinking. I think the right thinks this complicates things, but it's much of the same. So if the narrative is going to be the prosecutor versus the felon, I think it doesn't land on the right. It might land in the middle, and that's really what you got to look at.
I know you missed all my video, but the whole video I've been saying it doesn't matter one jot what the right think. It's irrelevant. So when you have people on the right go, oh, Kamala Harris is horrible, or she's this or she's that, and you go, I think this or that, like not interested. Honestly, it's irrelevant. All that matters is what people in the extended middle think.
Yeah, that's correct.
And that's it.
But there's one caveat to it: the enthusiasm gap.
Yeah.
So there was a huge enthusiasm gap, and it's yet to be determined whether that enthusiasm that just went up is going to continue to rise or just rise and fall. It depends on how. So Kamala's not really as tested as Biden. Like Biden's been in the light for a long time. Kamala, she goes to the elementary school or goes visit this or goes to visit that, but Biden got all the scrutiny that Kamala is about to get And we'll see yet whether she stands up to the scrutiny. She may not. We don't know yet. Like you were talking about in the primary, just before, like as I was listening earlier, and in the primary, she got no better than single digits. She never won a single like primary contest anywhere. So we just don't know. And I'm not being mean to her. I'm just saying we just
no, because it's interesting because like people who have slagged off Harris for not being ready then back in 2019 or saying this when she shouldn't have said that are the same people that are also endorsing JD Vance often, who 4 years ago, do you know what I mean? There's an interesting,
absolutely.
There's a really interesting parallel.
I know.
Yeah.
But he's the worst choice. I talked about this the other day. Yeah. We doubled down on MAGA. We shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I've discussed that already, but yeah, I 100% agree. You've just gone down the narrow, and I think they'll regret that now. I think someone is saying in the comments just now that there was this overconfidence, and I think that's exactly that. I think they thought they had it in the bag. Trump didn't want JD Vance. That was Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk that convinced him. It was like a Trump 2.0, and it's just too narrow. And I think, but the point is that Vance completely changed in 4 years. I don't know that he did change, but he said he changed to like with both rhetoric and positioning, etc., vis-a-vis some of those elements. And so if you're saying I don't have a problem with that, then pointing out that issue with Kamala Harris is double standards. So. Not that you're saying that.
I don't like him either.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying that you said that. But yeah.
So I think Republicans just see it very differently than what liberals on the left see. I mean, they just they're very excited about this, and they have a reason to be excited because anything from Joe up is probably better, but it's not. They're not going to get as better as they could have been if they went to an open convention and then vetted out whoever could rise to the top. And whoever, honestly, I believe that if you put forward a Keir Starmer-like candidate, and what I mean by that is just someone who's more palatable to the middle, who has someone preferably a little less known, because, again, she's going to own all of the Biden administration's policies.
But I was saying earlier that she can own the good parts and try and distance the parts from the bad parts.
No freaking way. She's part of the same administration. There's no.
I know she is, but I think you would be in a position to be able to try and do that. Like you would say, oh, look at what we did. Oh, I wasn't a fan of doing this part, depending on what that was. But then the problem is that the bits that she would try and distance herself from aren't necessarily going to be the bits that the Republicans will want her to distance themselves from. So it's all kind of like academic. What do you? So here's a question for you: as a Republican anti-Trump supporter of Ukraine, who would you like to see as Dem vice president?
I don't think it matters who they put as vice president. I think what would matter, what would move the needle would be if you had an open convention, had a different presidential choice. Someone like Kelly from Arizona.
Yeah.
I think Kelly could win. I think he's liberal enough that he'll keep the left. He's moderate enough that he'll attract lots of the center and parts of the disaffected right. But if he's a vice presidential candidate, it's not enough to move the needle like they need to. I think Kamala is better than Joe, but not enough that it's going to move the needle. But I'm seeing through my Republican prism, so I could be totally wrong. I'm just telling you, this is where the right sees. And again, I know enough to know that I don't see clearly or don't see reality. So I'm going to be watching the polls really carefully over the next few weeks to see if it's actually moving for Kamala. The money's moving, but I don't know that if anything else is yet.
I was saying earlier that the idea that $60 million plus has came in predominantly, I think, from like grassroots people.
Yes.
There's a lot of it was like small donations. Is itself a reflection that you've got an energized base that wasn't energized. So I think that is prima facie evidence that you've got an energized. In fact, if you look at all the newspaper reports, they are using the word energized as well. And I was saying that I felt energized last night, and I'm not even a bloody American voter, right? So if I'm energized, then surely there are actual Democratic people that are going. That means they're going to. So one of the problems that people were claiming that the volunteers were not turning up for Biden, that he was struggling to get volunteers to go out and do door-to-door canvassing. Now, if you've got suddenly people who are willing to put money, their own money into this, then that would, extrapolating that, I think you've got people who are now willing to go and volunteer. So I think you will have a grassroots movement that I think is going to be significant.
Do you think it's a good idea to coalesce just behind Kamala rather than go to an open convention and try to find the best guy?
I think there are arguments both ways, because it gives you another month now to sort things out if you coronate now. And that's really important, rather than go to an open convention where it could be chaotic. But I think she would come out best in an open convention anyway.
I've never seen this work well. I saw Bob Dole was the guy, well, it's his turn, and he lost to Clinton. I saw Hillary, it's her turn, right? She's the person next to, she deserves to be the next. It never works out well. Trump now, again. Well, let him try it again. It's not a good idea. Find the best guy or lady. It doesn't matter. That's not the point. I think the identity politics will energize the left a little bit. I think it'll fall flat. It certainly will fall flat on the right, but probably fall more flat in the middle. And if she amplifies that, I think it'll
That's the argument,
off the middle. And I don't think she can help herself. This is me as a Republican talking, right? I don't think she can help herself but amplify that.
But I would argue that if you look at the polling on things like reproductive rights, that if she amplifies that, then actually there are particularly female voters in the middle who will be mobilized to that. And I think that might not be to the desire of your kind of politics, but actually, like, that is the sort of voter that in the middle, the low info voter who is going to be annoyed at single issues like reproductive rights. So but there's lots of unknowns, so we don't know. We're kind of like supposing that people in the middle, and like you say, we have to wait for the polls to come out.
But that's assuming that you're running against someone who's on the opposite, where Trump actually staked out a more moderate position on that, to my annoyance, but still staked out a moderate position on that. Let the states decide, rather than, like, if she was doing that against previous times, pre-Trump, overturning Roe, it would be different. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not as potent for her as you would have otherwise thought.
I just think that judging by polls over time, that I think there is a significant demographic that are going to be super important, that are going to be mobilized by fear of Project 2025 and reproductive rights.
So what do you make of Project 2025? I think it's a boogeyman. I don't think it's nearly as bad as what people think it is. I think the idea that you're going to overturn civil service and then put in your political appointees is bad. Okay, I don't think it'll work. But if it does, all you're doing is creating turnover in each cycle. You put in all the Republicans in this cycle, let's say, and then you put in all the Democrats when the Democrats win in the next cycle. So it cuts both ways. It's just as bad.
I mean, the unified executive theory. I just think that it's just this gradual movement towards an authoritarian. It's just incredibly worrying. And there are.
It really is. It's undoing civil service and making them political appointees, which is probably a bad idea. We can agree on that, right? And then in the next Democrat-run administration, the Democrats will undo all of that and put all their people in.
But that's just horrible. That's just such destructive. Like that's just not healthy.
Right, and I agree, it's a bad idea
practically. But it's also the undoing of all sorts of things like environmental legislation. Now, you might have a problem with that, but I think that's incredibly destructive. There's a whole load of raft of ideas. And what was that rule? Something like Rule F or something, which is there's some really, really dangerous. Personally, I think dangerous ideas in it. But the point is it's what people think, and it appears that, like you say, the boogeyman's probably the correct term there because it's got enough people worried that Trump has actually had to try and distance himself from it publicly. So now you know that the Democrats are going to campaign on that. It's just going to be, they're going to go to town on that, reproductive rights, the convict, felon angle, and Trump's age. I'm sorry for people that have been watching the whole video because I've already talked about all of this, but to get your view, I mean, that's what they're going to campaign on. Interestingly, Trump is now the old person, and they're going to go down these senile, all the times that he's tripped over words and stuff like that. It's going to be a fascinating role reversal in terms of that.
I don't think it's going to matter that much. His age might have mattered, but after that, it will not matter at all. He neutralized that with what was clearly moral courage, regardless of what you think about the guy.
Yeah, yes, I agree. But I think
he neutralized that. The age that's going to hit him like it's going to bounce off like Teflon.
I think I think oddly that assassination, and I don't mean to belittle an attempt on someone's life, but I think that seems like so long ago now. Like honestly,
doesn't it?
Yeah,
like that's amazing, doesn't it? It was like a week ago.
Yeah, I honestly, like, the news cycle has now put that to bed. Whereas, like, at the time, everyone was like dooming and glooming about Biden's chances, and probably correctly so. But I think the world's moved on. I honestly think, and I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm not saying that's respectful or whatever. But in reality, people are not talking about the assassination attempt anymore, and that's probably to the detriment of Trump's kind of campaign. I think he would have liked that to have been a big thing still.
Yeah, I mean,
it's interesting.
At the very end of the campaign, it was like, how do we keep Trump from being Trump and just keep him, like, let Biden's campaign just kind of explode? Like, how do you keep him out of the spotlight now? Because it's just so bad for Biden at that point. That's what news commentators on Fox and other Republican conservative kind of stuff that I also watch were saying. And then Biden kind of ended that by dropping out.
That what they wanted is that to be just perpetuated on and on till the vote. And of course, the dilemma for the Republicans is the better they did to show that Biden was crap, right, the more likely it was that Biden pulls out. So they're kind of like a victim of their own success.
So his timing was impeccable to inflict the most damage on the Republicans by doing it when he did. Immediately after the convention, there's going to be a bump. Right. Yeah. And so that should take some of the air out of the tires by doing what they did. So I got to give Biden points for, doing that and taking air out of when that.
Yeah, I don't know whether it would have been intended like that. I think it was probably a natural climax. But you're right. It's absolutely optimal.
It was great timing from their side. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a question for you. Can you see any scenario where support for Ukraine is worse with any Democrat candidates? I mean, I just don't see any changes really because there's so much support on the left.
Yeah, well, so Cheryl Watley here says, we don't really know where Harris stands on Ukraine. Actually, we kind of do. Like, she turned up to the Peace Summit as a representative of the US. She's at least going to remain, like, with the Biden approach, right? However, there are some people saying, there's someone pointed out yesterday who her likely pick is for a national security advisor type person, and it's someone way stronger than Jake Sullivan. So there is a very real chance that you would get rid of the anti-escalation stance, and it could be a stronger. Well, my point is that it will at least be the same, possibly better for Ukraine.
I know dead people that are stronger than Jake Sullivan on Ukraine support.
You might have a point.
I mean, that's
yeah. I forget his name. I would have to go and research it, but it's worth looking at. And someone was saying that actually the chances are looking probably better for Ukraine, but there's a lot of ifs and buts, and there's a lot of time between. And again, you'd have to have.
Yeah, I just don't see anything going worse for Ukraine support from the left. And again, I've maintained this before. I think Trump is worse for Ukraine from everything I can tell. But he's got this weird wild card kind of thing where who knows what could happen if he got the right people around him or decided that it would.
But that's the problem. The problem is it depends on the people around him saying, you could be a hero if you won for Ukraine.
Yeah, I'm just not willing to roll the dice.
But I don't think he has got those. But he hasn't got those people. He chose JD Vance. You've got Tucker Carlson, Elon Musk. You've got Stephen Miller. You've got Steve Bannon. You've got every single person around him. All of the Heritage Foundation, including Justin Roberts of the Heritage Foundation himself, being now anti-Ukraine. So literally none of the party around him, unfortunately, favour a good outlook for Ukraine. So I think he could be the sort of person that could change his mind if he is pushed. I do believe that of Trump, because I think he's quite vacuous in terms of policy.
So what do you make of Boris's thing yesterday? Did you read about this? Boris coming out with his thing about how Trump's policy is going to be he's going to arm Ukraine, push them back to the borders, and then make a deal. That's what he was saying.
Yeah, so I think that Boris, rather like when David Cameron went over, they know Trump and they know what makes him tick, which is play on flattery and play on him being, you'd be the hero if you did that. And so I think there might be an element of trying to overstate the chance of Trump doing something like that from Boris Johnson's point of view, because he's trying to remain popular in that ecosystem. But I think the chances of I mean, it's interesting that you said that Trump does understand like the geopolitical ramifications of Ukraine losing. I just think Trump is just going to be in the palm of those around him. And
I don't think that Trump. No, so this is me as a Republican through my worldview, and I qualify that. I don't think Trump is in Putin's pocket like the left seems to believe. In like he's just going to do Putin's bidding. I think Trump works for Trump. I mean, and Trump's ego, he's beholden to his ego. And if he thought that would make him look weak or look bad or whatever, he would never go to it. But if he thinks it makes him look great, he'll go to it. I mean, that's just my read.
I think you're right, and I think that the problem is he really also admires strong men. So the problem, like, it goes back to Helsinki 2018, where I think that's a very worst point of American foreign diplomacy that I've ever seen, where in that Helsinki presser, he came out and he chose to support Putin and believed Putin over his own intelligence services, which if I was working for the CIA, at that point, I'd be like, what am I working for? There's my head honcho that I'm doing all this for is rubbishing me in favor of the dictator that we're fighting against. So I think that was terrible. And so for me, the biggest challenge for supporting Trump in terms of Ukraine is that he has a predilection for strongmen dictators such as Viktor Orban, who he's having a love affair with, Kim Jong-un, who he's sending love letters to, Xi Jinping, and Vladimir Putin and Jair Bolsonaro. So all of these people are who Trump's, and he did it the other day in a rally in Michigan, where he's saying all the wrong things.
I saw this hilarious meme on Twitter, and it had Xi on the phone and it had Putin on the phone, and you can't tell who's asking who which, but they're saying, "What does it mean? Drop out." So I just thought that was great. I mean, like, this doesn't compute to that kind of mindset, right?
Yeah. Of course, yeah. There's no such. We don't like. I've rigged it, so I will be here till I am dead.
Okay, let me go back to one last point that you just made about
because then I'm going to shoot and see my kids.
Believe Putin over his own FBI. Okay, that's kind of dopey, but let's concede a particular point. I think you can. Multiple things can be happening simultaneously. So the Russians could be behind the scenes doing things, trying to promote Trump, although they're also trying to just sow discord wherever they are. My thought, or everything that I understand tells me that Putin was actually surprised when Trump won, and he was sowing discord for Hillary. I could be wrong, but that's an interesting way of processing or thinking about what happened in the 2016 cycle. Right?
I wouldn't disagree that he's surprised that Trump won, because I don't think even Trump was surprised. Everyone was surprised, but I think they might have been sowing discord for discord's sake. But
and they were trying to make it hard for Hillary, right? I mean, that's what I'm trying to explain. So So now I think multiple things could be happening simultaneously, and that is the Russians could be doing what they're doing, but yet American Republicans could still be supporting this because they're supporting this independent of, not related to, not even thinking that that's actually going on, or denying that that's going on, going like, no, he's speaking for me because I'm like, right? So those things should be happening simultaneously. So you don't need cognitive dissonance to come into play here. You could just be like, no, this is what I believe. I support this thing. I'm a patriot. Right? And then you look at the Russian interference, and I think this is part of why Republicans so turned off to Ukraine, because it's Russia, and they've been tagged or tarred with this. You're just all in for Russia. No, we're not. We didn't have anything to do with Russia. So that's how they processed 2016, right? So Republicans weren't thinking anything about Russia. Mitt Romney was talking about how Russia is the greatest geopolitical threat in the previous cycle, and Republicans still believe that statistically until just after the election, when the media started pushing this, Trump only came in because Russia put him in narrative. So when that happened, it really switched some things.
Yeah, and I think Republicans. That's when you started seeing Russia properly launch huge campaigns of. You'd had it for a few years, but like the Internet Research Agency in St. Petersburg, Prigozhin's troll farm, was really starting to affect, I think, a difference in the political discourse in the US. But like going back to the Helsinki 2018 presser, what sums up Trump for me is the fact that he is just beholden to people who flatter him. So he was like, but doesn't have any like modicum of critical analysis. where he like, I don't know if you remember, but Putin said, he said, Putin's come up with this great idea where the people that are investigating here, we're going to get Russian people come and help us investigate and make sure that we're doing it right. Like, what are you suggesting? Yeah. And he said, I thought that's a brilliant idea. That's like literally the worst idea I can think of in terms of American intelligence. And it just blew my mind that he wouldn't have the wherewithal to think that was an absolutely shocking idea, that you would have FSB agents operating in the US to check over what US intelligence investigations were doing. Like, how can you not? And then he stands and says that in a presser. I'm like, you are not worthy of that position, that role of US president. Anyway, sorry, rant over.
In the early months this is going to sound weird. This is going to sound even shocking, maybe even naive. In the early months of the Trump presidency, I thought this was all media hype about what Russia was doing. I thought that. I'm a reasonably intelligent guy. But I thought this was like, political attacks from Democrats trying to say, because we lost, because Hillary was clearly supposed to win, it must have been because of Russia. Well, it turns out Russia was doing some nefarious things. We get that. It turns out it doesn't seem like it was enough to make them win. But
I'm not saying that, but yeah.
But okay, so from some reports, it seems that way. But nonetheless, the average Republican would have heard that and say, more Democratic nonsense. They have sour grapes because Hillary lost, and they're blaming like Russia did it. Really, I know that everyone that I know voted for Trump. Right? That's how they're processing this. Right?
It's the same with Brexit. So Russians were involved with the Brexit referendum in 2016 as well, and they were meddling and amplifying in exactly the same way. But I'm not arguing that it was enough to have swayed the vote. It was 52-48, so it was a close vote, but it was still like, I don't think it would have changed the vote necessarily, but the fact that we are having our elections interfered with, and there is
that shouldn't be. I agree.
That's a real challenge, and it will only get worse, I think.
But Republicans immediately discounted that because it was like an overblown thing from the left, and so they minimized it, which neither side should be doing either, right? I mean, this is just we react to each other in this weird symbiotic way because we need to hate each other.
This is true. I need to hate you. No, I totally get your point. Yeah, I agree.
So, at any rate, I know that you're way over time, so I'll just.
This is one of my longest ones, but yes, from my point of view, is that I am hopeful for a Democratic win now in a way that I wasn't 2 days ago. So I think this is definitely energize the Democrats, because it has to have done, because they're now throwing loads of money at it and people are shouting about it. People are creating memes already. Stuff is happening all over the internet, which I think is reflective. And I'm feeling that, so there must be Americans feeling that. I think that the Republicans have actually strategically made some mishaps by getting JD Vance in and being overconfident of Biden staying in the race, and they are now going to have to change an awful lot of stuff. And who will likely win, I don't know. But I think it's going to now be a lot closer than it might have otherwise been.
So is it more likely? Yes. But how much, I can't tell either. But I think it would be more likely if it was not Kamala. Yeah, I mean, no, not that if it was not Kamala. I mean, yeah, I stand by that. But they at least need to have a shakeout to determine who the best candidate is, rather than just go Kamala.
Yeah, and this is, I was saying earlier, this is what Rory Stewart, who's a former politician in the UK, as part of the Rest is Politics US podcast, he was saying exactly this. He was saying that I think Kamala Harris should win, but I think she should take the risk and go for the open convention, and then at least have the Democratic mandate to take on her leadership.
So the way it'll actually work is it'll go to convention. There'll be a first ballot. If she wins on that first ballot, she's in. If it doesn't, then it goes to the super delegates, and there's 700 of them, and they start to decide and figure out who it might go to. And so it could become more of an open convention, but behind the scenes, they got to be twisting everybody's arm right now, unimaginably, in order to try to secure this. Oh, it's for the good of the party. It's for the nation. But it's not. If it's for the good of Kamala, but I don't know that that's the best thing that they can put, the best candidate that they can put up against Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are going to be watching even more closely the next couple of weeks. We're going to wait till it's going to be a couple of weeks before we get decent polling of Harris versus Trump. People are going to be looking at those initial polls with very, very close scrutiny. I just think this makes the American election all the more interesting, actually. I think it's like someone's got all the pieces of paper and throwing them up in the air, and then everyone's like, oh, let's see how they land. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, and I'm sure we'll keep in touch and have some talks about how we think it's going over the course. Thanks so much, mate, for popping onto the live.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. And thank you so much for everyone else who's been with me now for 2 hours and 40 minutes, which is quite insane. This is me just giving stream of consciousness reactions to all of the stimuli I had up. So thanks for sticking with us. Last words to you, Darren.
I mean, I said everything I need to say. I can't predict anything more. Like, we couldn't have predicted this. We couldn't have, if 2 weeks ago we had predicted that any of these strings of events would have happened, we would have been like, if we were betting on it, we'd be broke.
Well, funny enough, I did predict he would step down by the end of the weekend, and it happened. So I was 2 weeks ago. But yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Before the assassination attempt, before the RNC, before Vance, before Biden stepped down, like we couldn't have predicted any of this. It's nuts.
Yeah, and again, I'll go back to, my goodness, the assassination attempt. Goodness, that felt like a month ago, but yeah, absolutely, mate. Cool beans. Okay, well, thanks, matey, and thanks to everyone else. Take care of yourselves, and I'll speak to you at some point soon. I have done my military aid video. I will release that later. I'll give you guys a bit of a break. I'll release that later tonight. But in the meantime, toodle pips, and Darren, thanks a lot, matey. Oh, and thanks to JR, who fielded the comments. He's a legend, and he's just below. He's not below my desk, but he's just below my screen. Oh, shut up, Pierce. Bye.